Hey guys, I've had a few weeks to check out the Pimax Crystal Light, and I am ditching my Quest PCVR setup for this. Let me show you why. Starting off with the initial setup, it went mostly smooth. On dedicated PCVR headsets, there are 3 cables to connect. The main hub has a display port which connects directly to your graphics card, and the USB should just connect to whichever port on your motherboard is the fastest. Make sure it's directly to the motherboard with a rear I/O USB port, not a front panel port. The power cable is a separate cable on the Crystal Light, but it connects to the hub on the main cable. Then just download the Pimax Play software. Should walk you through the setup, and it was pretty easy to follow. The only hiccup I had, I was trying to connect the Pimax Play to recognize the headset device. I ended up unplugging and replugging a few cables, and eventually ended up working. For more details, Pimax has a step-by-step tutorial on their website and a short video on YouTube. Once you get the device connected, at that point, it's just adjusting everything. On the headset, there's an IPD slider that you can use to adjust the distance between the lenses. I really recommend this, and it'll help a lot with taking advantage of the Pimax's clarity. There are tons of settings you can change. When I was getting help from Pimax support, they recommended turning smart smoothing off because the way it works in VR shooters. There's a lot of settings that depends on the graphics card you are using to run the headset, but the settings that will make the biggest difference are image quality, fixed foveated rendering, and refresh rate. I suggest adjusting them in that order, especially if you can stay at 90 Hz. It took a lot of tweaking, even for me, so if you have any questions about it, you can always shoot a comment down below. Now let's talk about the visuals. The QLED panel packed into this headset is the best VR headset display I have ever laid my eyes on. I've used the Quest 1, 2, 3, and the Crystal Light. I've used the HTC Vive once at an event for my college, but I'm not 100% sure what model it was. I will compare the spec sheet with the best display I've used outside of the Crystal Light, which is the Meta Quest 3. The Quest 3 has 2064 by 2208 per eye, and the Crystal Light has 2880 by 2880 per eye. The refresh rate is the same, both headsets support up to 120 Hz. Now, the resolution and the refresh rate will depend on the graphics card you're using and the title you're playing, which I'll get into that later. The FOV of the Quest 3 is about 110 degrees, and the Crystal Light is 130 degrees. FOV measurements for VR are very weird, and they're usually not 100% accurate. So, I will say, if you've ever used the Quest 2 and the 3, the jump between those two is about the same as the jump between the Quest 3 and the Crystal Light. The Quest 3 does have an LCD panel, while the Crystal Light has a QLED panel with local dimming. Basically, the difference is the backlight on the display. LCD panels have one backlight and that's it, and it is on when the display is on. The problem with that is if there are black pixels that the headset is trying to display, they'll end up appearing dark gray. The contrast isn't quite as good. The QLED display has numerous backlights in the display, so if one part of the screen is darker, the backlights in that area can be turned down to show better black pixels. For the lenses, the Quest 3 uses pancake lenses, which have really good clarity, and they are the biggest reason why that headset is as thin as it is. The Crystal Light uses aspheric lenses. They don't allow for as thin of a headset as the Quest 3 is, but that isn't as bad in practice, which I'll get into that later. In my experience, the aspheric lenses have much less clarity loss and a much bigger sweet spot, which allows for way better visuals. When I took videos through the lens for this video, it was way easier to line it up on the Crystal Light than it was with the Quest 3. The comfort is one of the weaker parts of the headset in my opinion, but it's not a deal breaker. In terms of the head strap, the Quest 3 definitely has an advantage because you can switch out the head strap for a better one. The Crystal Light head strap is really good, but the biggest problem I have noticed is after playing for about an hour, the back of my head gets sore around where the strap is. I wish the back pad were designed a little bit differently, more like a cup to make it more comfortable. It's really not that bad though. That's the only problem I've experienced comfort-wise, even in like 4-hour sessions. The other problem that I notice is that the rear dial doesn't let you cinch it very tight. If you try to, the dial will loosen a few clicks. Both of my review units did this, so yours might do the same thing. This also hasn't been a deal breaker for me, but it doesn't let me adjust it as tight as I would like it. There is another part of the comfort though. the weight and the weight distribution. I think the Crystal Light wins here. My Crystal Light setup weighs about 150 grams more than my Quest 3 setup without the extra external battery attached to the head strap. Your mileage may vary depending on the accessories you use for either headset. A lot of websites say that the difference is greater than that, but I think most of them weigh the Quest 3 with the stock strap. If you are considering the Crystal Light, I know you're not using that crap. The thing that isn't listed on spec sheets though is the weight distribution. You would think that the Crystal Light would weigh a ton because it looks gargantuan in comparison to the Quest 3. However, the Quest 3 is very densely packed with more components, including a battery which is really dense. The Crystal Light doesn't need that because it is a PCVR only headset. The main things in the front of the headset are the displays and the lenses, so I think the weight on the Crystal Light feels better than the Quest 3 when it's on my head. The controllers that the Crystal Light comes with are pretty standard. They resemble the Quest 2 controllers. The only real difference is that the Pimax controllers have a USB Type-C charging port on the bottom, so you don't need to worry about AA batteries anymore, or the battery compartment coming off. The headset does have inside-out tracking, so you don't need base stations to use it. However, you can get an accessory for the Crystal Light that takes the controllers and the tracking to the next level. If you get a Lighthouse faceplate, you can install that on the Crystal Light. Now, you can pop your headset directly into any Valve Index or HTC Vive setup. The Index base stations and knuckle controllers and the HTC Vive base stations, body trackers, and controllers are compatible with the headset using the faceplate. The knuckles are still some of the best in the industry right now, and base station tracking still has its advantages over inside out. The Pimax Play software it's pretty standard. Pimax does have a storefront, but there is not a whole lot on it as far as I could see. I didn't recognize any of the games on there. I just use SteamVR for my games. There are a bunch of settings you can customize for your headset like I mentioned earlier. Outside of that, there's not much. It's simple, and it gets the job done, and that's really all there is to say about it. The built-in audio is pretty mid. It sounds fine, but my biggest gripe is that it's too quiet for my liking. I usually run the Quest 3 no higher than 80% volume unless I'm playing by myself and really need to pick up on sound cues. For the Crystal Light built-in audio, I always have it on full blast, and it still doesn't quite feel like enough volume. However, there are ways to improve the audio. There is a 3.5mm headphone jack on the headset. Personally, I can't stand using over-ear headphones while in VR. It's way too uncomfortable. But even any earbuds should improve the sound. You can get VR earbuds on Amazon that have a shorter cord length specifically for VR, but realistically, you can just use any earbuds or IEMs and just tuck the excess cord down your shirt and it'll be just fine. There is one accessory that you can get, and that is the DMAS earphones. I have not personally tried them yet, but I may know more if I get them in the future. From what I know, they are like headphones that go directly on your ears, like the Valve Index and some of the HTC Vive models. I bet they would significantly improve the sound, but I don't have any personal experience with them yet. I've talked a lot about the good things in this headset, and I mentioned a few downsides. However, the horsepower that you need to have a good experience on this headset is probably the biggest downside. If you have a great modern PC gaming setup already, or you have the money to get one, you don't have to worry about this. My computer has an RTX 5070, and I had to turn my settings a little bit. I barely have any headroom on my graphics card. I'm running the headset at about 75% image quality, balanced foveated rendering, and 90 Hz on my card. It still looks fantastic and better than my Quest 3 did on this same computer, but that's still less than the headset is capable of. Here's what I personally recommend for the best experience on the Crystal Light. I wouldn't recommend any NVIDIA card earlier than the 30 series, and even within that series, your best experience will be with a 3090 Ti. Your best experience will be on the 4070 Ti, 4070 Ti Super, or the 5070 Ti, or anything higher than that. If you want to go AMD, the RX 7900 XT or XTX or the RX 9070 XT should be enough horsepower, but I've heard of issues running VR on AMD cards, so proceed with caution. Yeah, I'm sure you would expect this, but I don't think any of the Intel cards are compatible. Even if they were, they wouldn't have enough horsepower for my recommendation in their current state. Also, even though super high-end laptops might have enough horsepower to run the Crystal Light, I really don't recommend it. You're better off running this on a desktop setup. If you want more detail about how your graphics card will perform with the Crystal Light, Pimax has more info on their website. Now let's talk about this headset's biggest advantage. It's a PC-only headset. There's a lot of PC-only headsets in the market, but in the price bracket that the Crystal Light is in, you're still somewhere in the middle of an average Quest Link PCVR setup and the cutting-edge high-end PC-only headsets. So I feel like this is important to mention for the Quest Link users. If you want wireless PCVR, the Quest is your only option, but that comes with latency and the need for a really high-end Wi-Fi setup. When I use my Quest for PCVR, I always use a link cable. When you compare wired Quest Link to the Crystal Light, I noticed something interesting that I don't see a lot of people talking about. When you use wired Quest Link, it only connects using one USB Type-C cable to your motherboard. It's not connected to your graphics card. So, your graphics card is actually working overtime to compress the visual data to send over the link cable. So even when I was just playing VR, I was not streaming or recording, the video encode on my GPU was sitting at about 15 to 20%. It's not really a huge deal if you have overhead and you aren't a content creator, but if you are a content creator like me, that makes a difference in real recording and streaming scenarios. With the Crystal Light, the connectivity includes a DisplayPort, which connects directly to the graphics card. That means the graphics card can directly output to the headset without having to worry about compressing anything. The USB plug is only used for tracking and other communication between the headset and the PC. When I first started using the Crystal Light, I noticed that the connection was a lot more stable and I didn't have to turn down the resolution or refresh rate as much as I did for my Quest 3 PCVR setup. I think the connectivity had to do with that. Of course, this is just an advantage for any PC-only headset, but it's really worth mentioning since a large chunk of the PCVR market is Quest users. Another smaller thing is power. On Quest Link, the headset charges via the link cable. That's charging a battery while it's being used. Even normal PCVR degrades the battery significantly faster than normal, and in many cases, depending on your PC and cable setup, the battery doesn't charge faster than it drains, so your headset may actually run out of battery while playing wired PCVR. This is not a problem for the Crystal Light. You just plug it straight into the wall, and that's it. I've already mentioned some of these accessories a few times in the video, but I will mention them again here. I'll drop some prices, but keep in mind that they could change. If you want to use the Crystal Light with the Valve Index base stations and knuckle controllers, the HTC Vive controllers, the Vive trackers, or the Tundra tracker, you should look at getting the Lighthouse faceplate. It's $200 at full price. I haven't tried this since a base station setup would not work with my apartment at all, but I may try it in the future. The DMAS earphones are a great way to upgrade the audio and without having to worry about cords and earbuds. They are $100 at full price. I haven't tried this either, but I might be able to in the next couple of months. There are two comfort accessories you can get as well. The top strap is $20 and the 15mm face cover is also $20. I have tried both of these. I don't think these are must-get accessories by any means, but they are worth getting if you want a slight comfort upgrade. The top strap installation definitely threw me for a loop. It takes about 30 minutes to do. It comes with the screwdriver in the box, but if you have a small screwdriver set like this one, it is way easier to use in some cases. Just make sure you don't lose the bag of screws. This is going to be a long section, but I think the current VR hardware market is pretty nuanced, and the headset you should get really depends a lot on the situation that you're in. Before we get into that, I want to mention the price. It's $850 total. In most regions, they have Pimax Prime on this headset. That means it is $600 up front to get the product shipped to you. You can use it for 14 days. Then you need to pay $250 through Pimax Play software to use it beyond that. This may change, but that's how it works as of right now. If a computer isn't going to be a part of your VR setup, the Quest 3 and 3S are the obvious choice. I don't feel like I need to explain that anymore. If you have a high-end gaming laptop that you plan on using for your VR setup, I would actually still recommend the Quest 3 or 3S, or maybe even the Quest 2 if you want to save a buck on your headset. Using a dedicated PCVR headset on a laptop is pretty strange. There really isn't a way to connect the DisplayPort directly to the graphics card. Most laptops come with HDMI ports, and converting from DisplayPort to and from HDMI is weird and a bit murky, so I'd recommend just skipping dedicated PCVR headsets for a laptop VR setup and going for a Quest. I will warn you, you will need a really good laptop for VR, and it's not cost effective at all. There are not many scenarios where this makes sense. The form factor of a laptop sucks for cooling, even if you buy a cooling pad. If it makes sense to you for some reason, go for a Quest and use Quest Link. However, if you're watching this video, you probably have or are planning to get a mid to high-end gaming desktop rig for VR. If that's you, I would recommend this headset. I haven't personally tried any of the other common PCVR headsets like the Valve Index or the Big Screen Beyond, but I'll go off my VR experience and what I've heard about those headsets and recommend a headset for you. If you don't have a headset yet, the Crystal Light is a solid option. Its $850 full price tag isn't a huge barrier to entry in comparison to other dedicated PCVR headsets, which could run you over $1,000. Even then, you'll probably still be able to get the Crystal Light for cheaper than that, for reasons I'll get into later. You can get a Quest if you want to, but I think the Crystal Light is a worthy upgrade in that situation. If you have a gaming desktop PCVR setup with a Quest, like I said, the Crystal Light is definitely a noticeable upgrade. You can say goodbye to link compression and enjoy much better visual quality. If you have a Valve Index or an older HTC Vive and you're looking to upgrade to something more modern, this is a really good option. A lot of people have been talking about the Big Screen Beyond as an upgrade to the Valve Index, but I think there's a good reason to consider this headset as well. The Big Screen Beyond, of course, has the size advantage. It is insanely small. It also probably has a comfort advantage because of that size, and it has the custom mapped face cover. But the Crystal Light has the same display technology and even better resolution. But the biggest difference for Valve Index users to consider is the refresh rate. Valve Index users probably have a modern graphics card that's able to run the Valve Index at high refresh rates since it supports up to 144 Hz. If you switch to the Big Screen Beyond, you're capped way down to 90 Hz. 90 Hz is not that bad, but I can almost guarantee it'll be noticeable to the average Valve Index user. The Crystal Light supports up to 120 Hz, which is not that much of a difference from 144 Hz. Also, the Crystal Light plus the Lighthouse faceplate combo is cheaper than the Big Screen Beyond, and it still slots right into your current Valve Index setup. On the HTC side of things, this will beat a Vive from the late 2010s, hands down in almost every category, so this is definitely a worthwhile upgrade. You can also slot this right into your current Vive setup, even with Vive trackers. There may be some things that I've missed, especially in the PCVR recommendations, since I have never used a Valve Index or a Big Screen Beyond. If you're in that situation, I really recommend watching a Big Screen Beyond review as well and compare them. See which features mean more to you. I always recommend considering as many options as you can. If you want to get this headset, you should definitely look out for the deals. They happen all the time. There are 2 deals I mainly want to mention in this video. Using my discount code, DMH, you can get 3% off the Crystal Light and I get a commission. You can also get bundles of accessories with the headset to save even more if you're wanting to get them anyway. The Comfort Fit bundle is actually exactly the same price as the headset by itself, and it comes with the top strap and the face cover, so if it's in stock, it's definitely worth snacking $40 of accessories for free. The VR Elite bundle comes with a Lighthouse faceplate and a top strap. It's only worth $220 by themselves, but with the bundle, it's only $100 extra. It's out of stock at the time of making this video, but definitely worth checking if you are upgrading from an older SteamVR base station setup. The HS Player bundle comes with a top strap for the same cost as a headset by itself. It's not a bad deal if the Comfort Fit isn't in stock. There is a much bigger discount you can get if you already have a VR headset from any brand. They told me to mention this in the video, but after looking into it, I would have mentioned this regardless because it is a super cool idea. The deal is the PCVR upgrade event. They wanted to reward people who already have VR headsets because we are still early adopters of VR. We invested early and are the reason it's getting any traction at all. So if you already have a headset and send Pimax proof of purchase of any VR headset you own, you can get anywhere from $40 to $100 off the Crystal Light. If you have multiple headsets, you can stack all of your VR headsets into one discount. On top of that, you don't need to send the headsets to Pimax. You can do whatever you want with them. You can keep them, you can sell them, give them away, it does not matter. This works with pretty much any mainstream VR headset from Meta, the early days of Oculus, Pico, HTC, HP, Valve, you name it. However, you can't stack this with any of the other deals like flash sales or my creator code. You should definitely take advantage of this if you already have a headset. If you use my link in the description, I get a commission for that as well. There is also more info for what qualifies as proof of purchase. It would mean a lot if you used my links in the description. It doesn't come at any additional cost to you, and you get some nice discounts. It's entirely up to you, but you don't have to at all. I can guarantee that every dime I have made from YouTube will go straight back into the channel, staff, and the recording setup. I am not keeping or spending any of it on me. That's all I have to say. That's everything I noticed in the few weeks since using the Pimax Crystal Light. I have had a great experience with it, and Pimax is probably the best out of the 15 companies that I've worked with. They were super helpful, very generous, and really cool people to talk to. Huge shout out to Pimax for making this possible and making my streaming and recording smoother than ever. Stay tuned, because if they like this video, this won't be the only Pimax product I review. I'll see y'all in the next one. Love you guys. One thing I forgot to mention in the original video, because I didn't know it existed, are the Pimax Black Friday deals. If you're watching this in the month of November in 2025, you can go to the link in the description, and there are a bunch of deals. So, for example, of course, the PCVR upgrade event is still going on, so if you have a headset, take advantage of that. That's probably one of the best discounts you can get. Also, if you wear glasses, you can get free prescription lenses. If you're a creator or you just want a better mic, you can get a free microphone. If you want a pulley system, you can get that, like the one that I have here. You can get a free cable management system. You can also, if you want Flight Sim, you can also get an add-on package for that. So just go to the description and check it out if you're buying this in November 2025.